Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest Not So Happy version podcast. CADS. I can't talk. I can't do it. I'm feeling distraught tonight. I mean, I'm sorry. What in the name of footballing sanity is going on at Tottenham Hotspur right now? Ange Postecoglou, the man who just broke a 17-year trophy drought, who delivered our first European silverware in 41 years, who had the fans believing again, is sacked. 16 days after glory in Europe. This isn't just a poor decision. For me, it's a betrayal. It's the kind of boneheaded, bordering blunder that makes you wonder if Daniel Levy has an allergy to long-term success. This man built something. He brought identity, courage, a style, something we've been calling out for years. And they've thrown it away like yesterday's match programme. Spurs fans deserve better. Postecoglou deserve better. This isn't ambition. This is incompetence dressed up in a suit and tie. But those are just my feelings. Other people are entitled to feel differently, and I've got three gentlemen here with me who may have different opinions. So I'm going to go around the table. Charlie, how you doing?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I'm good. Not surprised. Just I'm good.
Okay. We are also joined by Brian making his CADS debut. How you doing?
Well, I'm really sad. It's Stuart. It's not just this kind of disappointment that's often there, and we've been through this so often. Whether it was Conte's special kind of betrayal or Mourinho and so on. Okay, I mean Pochettino had been there 5.5 years, so that was a really very different situation. And here, I just think that it just shows you sort of the malaise which is at the center of our club. That's the problem. For me, it's more than a football question. It's also a question of the kind of human being that Postecoglou was and the way he was able to express that, and his relationship to the players in particular showed, yeah, that there are values which are just beyond tactical measures that are taken to, um, that are used on a football field, and I think that the loss is huge. It's because it's not just about football; it's about culture, identity, who we are, who we want to be, and I'm sure
Yeah.
these are things that Daniel Levy simply doesn't understand. Really, he doesn't actually understand what kind of human beings are involved.
All right. Ian from Tottenham Hotspur. Normally you're reviewing Tottenham Hotspur podcast. Tonight you're featuring on one. We're not expecting any special treatment from you later on. How you doing?
I was good until about 3 hours ago, Stu. And
Yeah,
also,
me
how do I
too.
follow Brian after that impassioned speech? It sums it up perfectly. We can just call the podcast there. What a ridiculous day. Uh,
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Dreading to think of what the fallout's going to be within the fan base.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's the next thing. I mean, we got to the point where, yes, some people are unhappy, and I can understand why people are unhappy. And I could almost understand. No, I would. I would have understood this decision if it had been taken a week ago, if it had been taken 10 days ago. Ideally, right after the Brighton game. Let the man know, let Ange Postecoglou know what's going to happen. Don't let him go off on holiday. Don't let him do an interview talking about the future and what he's going to be doing at Tottenham with Australian TV. I mean, they just kept him dangling on a string for 16 days. And then they were like, oh, yeah, okay, we don't think it's working out because you lost too many games in a season that was racked by injury,
Mm.
in a season where we weren't able to put out our best team for the majority of the season. And when we did, we prioritized. We prioritized glory. What does that tell the next manager coming in? Don't worry. Don't win things. Just get us into top five or top six. It's okay. It's performing in Europe isn't important, but performing in the league, that's where we need to be keeping ourselves focused, everybody. Ah, I tell you what, 2019 when we sacked Pochettino, I was numb. I felt that same kind of numbness creep back in, but as time has gone on, I've just felt angrier and angrier about this decision. And I just feel it's not the decision, it's the timing. If they'd said this, if they'd done this earlier, okay, I can understand that you're unhappy with the league results. I can understand that, but don't say, "Oh, we've given this a lot of time and a lot of thought," and then turn around and sack the manager just won us something.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think the thing is, I don't know how you. Okay, we were all watching the games week after week, and the league results and everything, and so on. Yeah, but I do feel that the derailment which happened through the injuries, and it's not just the number of injuries in the end. It was always whole blocks of groups, central groups. It was either all the defenders or all the midfielders, or it was always something which was so incredibly disruptive that it wasn't really an incredible surprise to see that we weren't able, or Postecoglou wasn't able to rectify that. I mean, for me, it seemed to be very clear that it's incredibly difficult to develop any kind of reasonable dynamic under those circumstances. Okay, good. Then there was obviously a decision taken, which we know about now, to prioritize the Europa League, simply to say, okay, he understood what he understood not only what it means to be a winner in a general sense. He understood that it was only through that you can begin to change the mentality of the players, of the club, in a fundamental way. That was his aim, and he managed to get there. Now, what we wanted to see is to see, okay, what happens now when these players, when the club has the experience of winning in an important way. And that's what, the step that we needed to take. That's what should have happened. And that now has really been put on hold. Whoever comes in is going to have a really tough time. Yeah. And the first game is against Paris Saint-Germain. Yeah.
That won't be an easy one, will it?
It's
Oh, no,
amazing
no.
that person's going to win a cup in their first competitive game. That's pretty good.
They always win in their first match. I always win a trophy in the first match. I literally today I've been out teaching English. It's what I do, everybody, on my day job. I go out, I teach English. I was in a business today talking to a PSG fan, and I was saying, "Oh, your manager's going to be all right. There's no chance of him getting the sack." And he went, "Why would your manager get the sack? He just won you a European trophy." And I was like, "Right." But I mean, some people saw this coming. Some people saw this coming. One of those people is Charlie. Charlie, what did you see that I completely missed?
Well, you know me, Stu. Like I've been massively pro Ange for a while, and I think he's amazing. I really do. I love the bloke, and I think he was a breath of fresh air. And I think I know a lot of people, in terms of the league, not just in the club, but a breath of fresh air. Stood up for the club, stood up for himself. Never gave anyone an inch. I think probably to a fault, and got a lot of criticism because of it. Most amazing mic drop of all time.
Yeah.
Was the winning of the trophy a couple of weeks ago. But up until about February, I really was very, very much pro him staying. I wanted to see him. I think I went head to head with someone here, and I said, I don't care what happens this year. I just wanted to be in charge. I wanted to be in charge next year, regardless of outcome this year. We're not going to get relegated. We probably won't win a cup. I said this back in January. And I just want to see him build on it. And it changed for me towards the end of the season. I don't know. I think the proof is in when people are like, "Oh, PSG we're gonna be playing PSG. We're gonna get hammered." I always felt like we were competitive under Poch. I always felt like we had a chance against anyone. And I think there's an underlying understanding that Postecoglou didn't know what he was doing enough, in order for us to be convinced that he could take us into a Champions League season. I think it comes down to that, and I'm gutted because everything else is in the right place with him. His attacking mentality, his just general sort of love of the club and love of winning and bullish mentality. It wasn't enough to convince the powers that be that we were about to go into a Champions League season and we needed to finish minimum 12 places higher than we did this year and build on that and win a cup next year. Otherwise, we'll all be disappointed. I think they looked at Postecoglou and went, "There's just no way that that guy is going to be able to do that." Given everything they knew about him over the course of 2 seasons. And I do think his philosophy was a problem in terms of injuries as well. I do feel like the injuries were a cause of, it's hard to say that, but like he has a track record of having hamstring injuries in his teams, and everything added up. Ultimately, at the end of the day, I just could not. If we go for someone like a Frank and we go for someone on that level, I will be very, very, very disappointed. But I can't help but think that this 16 days between winning the cup and sacking him hasn't been, because we are lining somebody up who will take us to the next level, and then therefore that will justify completely Postecoglou getting fired. But if we go for a Frank, I mean. I don't know what he brings, to be honest. I don't know what he brings, to be honest. I think that's just going to be a sideways step, to be honest. So, yeah, so that's where I'm at.
More muscle injuries. That's what he brings. If you look at the injury tables, he's not much better than we were. Brentford with
Right.
fewer
Yeah,
games.
Brentford as well. Yeah, yeah.
So I agree with you though. What are we getting? What are we? This is the context that we're missing. If we had something lined up, if we had a manager who was going to be slotting in tomorrow to cut this off, great. Instead, we're going to be left to stew for days. And I feel like we've been robbed somewhat of the post-trophy glow.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
It's dragged on for so long now.
On.
They let the guy go on vacation. Unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah, during a transfer window as well.
Yeah, we're losing time.
Yeah.
Well, to be fair, our transfer window doesn't open until about 4 days before everybody else's closes. So that doesn't really make much of a difference for us. Oh,
last year,
yeah.
Okay, right, yeah.
No. So, as you can imagine, we've had people who are normally on this podcast. They've written in David, who was probably one of the first people to be fairly agnostic. He wrote in and he said, "For what it's worth, I'm extremely sad, conflicted, glad someone else made the decision, but I think it's the right one. He can leave as a legend now." And I think he does leave as a legend because, as I said before, he first trophy in 17 years, first European trophy in 41 years, only the third manager to actually win us a European trophy. He can go as a legend, and I for one will forever be grateful to Ange Postecoglou because having gone through Mourinho, Nuno, Conte, this guy brought me some love back to the Tottenham Hotspur.
Absolutely.
I could look at that team and I could be proud of it. There were things in there that I was like, yeah, they're trying to play the right way. And yeah, we lost 22 games last season. But for me, for a long time, it was very, very clear where the focus was. The focus was not on rushing back Romero, rushing back Van de Ven, because we could have brought them back earlier. We could have played them in more games. The focus was making sure these players are right for European matches. And the stats bear it out. If you look at the games that they played last season, and there wasn't a lot of them, but they picked up an average of 2 points per game. Now, that's 76 points over the course of a season. That's a Champions League spot. Anyone complaining about that? I highly doubt it. Start of the season, what do you think Daniel Levy's target to Ange was? Do you think he said, "Oh, make sure you don't lose 22 games," or do you think he said, "What we want this season, aiming for really ideally is Champions League qualification, and if you can get us a trophy, that would be great as well"? He did both of those things, and he sacked him. What does that tell the next manager? What does that say to the next manager? Success will get you the sack.
I mean, I think you're taking it a bit out of context. I mean, like, I was the most ardent Anjan, advocate for most of the season against a lot of other people, David Weeks, a couple of other guys who are on this podcast. I'm completely with you, Stu, but any semblance of Ange ball had evaporated, and we had a fully fit squad by the end of the season. There wasn't any version of his, bombastic style of play that was evident by the end of the season. And, that game, we won the trophy, of course, but that game was not the game that Ange represents. That's not he absolutely compromised on on himself there. And by the end of the season, I didn't know what I was arguing for anymore in terms of Ange, and yeah, I think he had just run his course at that point. I think he'll get another Premier League team very, very quickly, and I think they'll set up the same way. But I think he'll probably run into the same problems. Like, people got wise to Ange Ball real quick, and there wasn't really a plan B, and that's really the
Well, I
problem.
mean, there must have been a plan B, otherwise we wouldn't have won the trophy. I mean,
Yeah.
what you're saying is, I understand I don't think compromise is the right word. I think what he realized in prioritizing the Europa League is that obviously the way that we've been playing the so-called Ange ball, with our fullbacks playing sort of centre forward or whatever and so on, that of course he actually gave that up. But if you look at those three away games including the final, Frankfurt, Bodo Glimt, and the final, were all played in a quite similar way. Yeah, and I think that he understood the necessity for this club to win a trophy, not just in terms of, okay, we haven't won a trophy, to actually, I think it's all about changing the mentality. This whole time, I mean, in the last number of press conferences that he gave, the whole time he was talking about the way the club is seen, the way the club sees itself, its self-image, the Spursy thing, and so on. And I think that his whole idea was to say, okay, I'll be as pragmatic as is needed in order to change that mindset. That seemed to me a very clear objective that he had, and he went through with that. I don't see it as a compromise. I see it as a very necessary step, to actually change the way that our club thinks about itself, the way that the players think about themselves. And if you have that experience, you begin to behave differently.
It's a question, Brian. Do you think he managed that? Do you think he succeeded? Do you think his legacy will be that mentality change?
Well, the thing is, the problem is if you divorce that from his personality, from who he is, yeah, it's very difficult to find out, if that's the case or not. Because if it's Thomas Frank, who's a really intelligent and a good coach, I'm sure he is. Yeah, but with Frank, with all these other people, we'll be looking at finishing seventh or sixth or something, yeah, if we're lucky. But and I just think that what again, this is, I think, on a personality level, that the intensity of the charisma that Postecoglou has is quite exceptional. Yeah, the way in which he fronted up week for week, in those press conferences and so on. Yeah, and when you began to understand how, and also that decision that he made to get all the players to make videos of their family and what Tottenham meant to their families and so on, and using that. Yeah, that shows to me somebody who really understands on a very quite deep level how human beings operate, what they are, who they are. And I think it's very difficult to actually divorce this idea of mentality change from his own personality. So I think it's difficult to answer. Frank might well be. I mean, we're talking as if it's a done deal. I don't think it is. I don't know, but none of these possibilities at the moment excite me in any way, to be perfectly honest. I think a lot of them are competent, but not more than that.
You see, I gotta say, like, the league form was so bad, and because the stakes in the league, we knew we weren't going to get relegated,
Yeah.
were so low that it said so much about the way that team under Postecoglou had started to believe that the Premier League was just a given, status was a given, and naturally during European nights, when you get to the latter stages, you up your game anyway. Like, it really shouldn't take, a coach to rile you up for a massive European night, especially away from home. I'm not saying that Postecoglou he wasn't the person that was responsible for that, but the home performances in the league were shockingly bad, and he oversaw those. He's responsible for those, like, and it was to the point where it was just like there was apathy among everybody. When you're in charge of a club, whether you win a European trophy or not, and you oversee a period of apathy, and he had a fully fit squad, that is an issue. Like, he could not get people up for, after his first 10 games, the rest of the season. He couldn't maintain that level of, like, we need to fight for our league position. There was no guarantee we were going to win the Europa League. There was no guarantee we were going to get in the Champions League. And I think it's an amazing story that he got us in there. And the season we've had is incredible. But he did deserve the sack. He did deserve it ultimately. And I loved him. He deserved to get fired, and nobody can say he didn't.
Well, I say he didn't, but okay. I understand what you're saying.
He definitely deserved to get fired. He deserved to get fired in January.
Charlie, as far as you're concerned, I understand what you're saying, but I don't think he did deserve the sack. And I don't think, I mean, you've still got to explain. I understand what you're saying. You're right about the home form. And okay, I was there a few times. And the apathy, okay, we all knew we were going to lose, yeah. But but you've still got to explain how come 220,000 people turn up on Tottenham High Road and whatever. I mean, because that is the what was released through winning, obviously winning Bilbao, but yeah, I think it's a lot more than that. For me, it's not. I actually, because he talked about his laser focus or whatever. Fair enough, yeah. But I really think he understood really very deeply what this club needed. Yeah. And it wasn't, and okay, it's true I won't deny it obviously with the Premier League. You can see it week in, week out. But I still think that he actually achieved the most important thing that's happened to the club in the last 30 years.
Yeah, and I tip my hat to him, and he absolutely did that. Absolutely. I don't think anyone else could have done it, and it took a special person to do that. But the payload of what he has to deal with next year, with largely a similar group of players, potentially minus a couple of key figures at this point, is like he wasn't equipped for that. He wasn't equipped to do that. And I wrote right after the Europa final, I wrote that he should stay. I think I'm right with you, Brian. I was like, 100%. He has changed the mentality of Spursy, of us. Like, days like this, it was right after the parade. Days like this don't come around every day. And I was giddy on it all. And I believed in what I was saying at the time. But, this decision has been made right now, and it's important. I think it's important to back why the decision was made. That's probably why I'm now so vociferous. I'm not a massive Daniel Levy fan at all. I think he's an abusive chairman who has zero understanding of what it is to be a fan. I think these 16 days have been horrible. I think it's an abuse of the fan base to not have said something earlier. And I can only hope that things have been shifting behind the scenes, so there'd be a quick transition, and this period of what is like intense anger, because there's a lot of people out there who are really, really pissed off about this, will come to an end real fast when we start to talk about someone else. So just pray it's not Frank. I hope it's someone foreign.
Yeah, and the fans are easy to win over. Give us 2 games, we'll be fine. 2 wins, beat Arsenal, we'll be on the on the side of whoever's the coach. But it's the players that I worry about. They've been so invested into Ange that you've taken him away, and they don't seem to agree with him. I just wonder what the squad dynamics are going to look like over the next,
Well, I heard that they were going to fire him in January, and the squad actually they've revolted
on it.
Yeah. I heard that happened back in January.
I have skepticism about reports like that, because we can never know what's happening behind the scenes. Just like today, we don't know what the conversation between Levy and Ange looked like. Was there a discussion? Was there a discussion about? Sorry, go on, Brian.
No, I think Jans. I think that Postecoglou's statement actually does tell us quite a lot about.
Do you think?
Well, I mean, he doesn't mention Levy. He doesn't mention. He mentions the fans. He mentions the coaches. He mentions the players. Yeah.
But that's my point. We don't know whether Ange was looking for backing. A full to there is to do. I've given you a trophy to play my way next year. I can give you more. Give me the players I need. And Levy said, "No, I'll give you a couple of 19-year-olds. Let's see if you can.
Yeah.
Let's see if you deserve it, right?" So we just don't know what that conversation.
But the Tottenham statement does start with he's been relieved of his duties. So there wasn't. Okay. Well, that means he was sacked. That means he
Yeah.
wasn't prepared to go of his own accord.
Yeah, but of course he wouldn't, because he would give up any money he was owed.
Well, that could
£4
have
million.
that could have been a mutual agreement, couldn't there?
Yeah.
They could have done, but why should he? The guy just won us a trophy. I said earlier, I hope Ange Postecoglou makes them pay every single penny of his compensation.
Absolutely.
Because normally I would, in a situation, I would have some sympathy towards the club. But on this one, I just can't. It's timing. It's the fact that he's a champion. He's a total winning manager for us. He won us a trophy. And people can complain about, but he adapted from what he did. I understand what Charlie's saying, but that's exactly what people were calling for 6 months ago. People were saying, he doesn't adapt. He's not able to adapt. So then he adapts, and now people are saying, he adapted too much. We can't see what he was trying to achieve. Well, what he was trying to achieve was win games and win a trophy, and that's exactly what he did. He put the side out there with a game plan. They then won, and he's getting criticism, and this isn't aimed at Charlie. This is definitely aimed to a wider group of people who are saying things like, "We didn't see Ange ball at the end." No, because you were asking him earlier on to do other things. He did other things.
I wasn't, Stu. Just FYI, I was like, stick with Ange. But if I kept seeing Ange ball and they were getting tonked 5-0 and I saw Ange ball, I would have still been like, no, let's keep him on, because it's just a little shift in the defensive mentality, and I think we're going to be an amazing team. It's because I saw zero evidence of Ange ball in the last 20, 25 games that we, really since the Man City game, it evaporated.
But also, I mean, the other thing is people saying that the atmosphere in the stadium has been difficult. Well, I watched the last game of the season. When we scored, everyone was singing Ange Postecoglou's name. When we conceded and they equalised, everyone was singing Ange Postecoglou's name. When they scored their second, they sang louder. When they scored their third, our fans sang louder again. When they scored their fourth, guess what? They sang even louder.
Yeah.
He did not lose the faith of the home crowd,
because
because
that was after Bilbao, though, wasn't it?
That was after Bilbao.
I was there for the Crystal Palace game. I've never experienced anything as dead as it was. Totally dead. There was absolutely. I mean, we were just kind of like watching the last rites, to be perfectly honest. But okay, and that was where we were. Sometimes you have to stick through to get through stuff like that. Yeah.
And that's a fan's
Charlie was on the
prerogative.
podcast with me. Yeah, it is. Charlie was on the podcast with me when we were talking in February, when we were on that horrible, horrible run. January, February time. We didn't win in 9 games or something. And I was like, I don't know whether I'm going to wake up and see Ange Postecoglou as Tottenham manager in the morning. And it would have been hard to argue against it because of our form. But we pushed through it. And obviously there was an agreement of what could be done. And we achieved it. And once again, it's like being spat in the face. Honestly, it's like, okay, guys, here's something you've all been calling for. Now, sod you.
Sorry.
Let's let Ian talk, because he's joined us tonight, and Ian has his finger firmly on the pulse of what's going on in the Tottenham pod sphere, because this guy listens to how many podcasts a week?
Dozens. Too many.
More than dozens. There's something like 52 podcasts. So.
I can't listen to all of them, Stu. I do my best, but I can't listen to all of them. I think that this is just a funny time where we're very raw. It's very recent. We're not going to know whether this was a good choice for months. I think there's been a lot of people who've been bracing for this and dealing with it in their own way, and filling up this vacuum with guesswork and conjecture. And I kind of wish that hadn't happened. I think that's what makes me most disappointed, is that we've been left with that by this decision. I think there's a middle ground between where Charlie is and where Brian is, which is nobody's owed a job. He's got good, he's got bad. He was basically a coin flip going into Europa, if I'm honest. I kind of believe that. And Levy should have made a choice on this before the game. He should have known what he was doing. He should have known who was going to be coming in. He should have known what the strategy was. To see Manchester United going out and signing players after losing the Europa.
Yeah.
And for us to be in this death spiral is shameful, really. I haven't listened to a podcast in a while because I was getting a little sick of this. Not any part of the speculation. We don't know what's happening. Let's just wait and see now. Let's not do the guesswork. Let's not fan cast whatever manager we want to step in, because we know we're going to get whatever they give us now. We're not going to be able to push back. And I hate to say it.
No,
I hate to be so negative about it, but you're just going to let yourself down again. Levy's just going to let you down again.
We weren't supposed to be doing any more podcasts. We were supposed to be on break now. And we've come back for this one. And honestly, I don't think we're going to do another one until there's a new manager in place.
Yeah.
Because there's plenty of places for speculation. There's plenty of people out there who will talk about it. I'm still on socials now looking and seeing what's going on. And certain names are being bandied about. And Thomas Frank's name, more than anyone, is getting pushed around. And he's a good manager. He's a good manager.
Yeah, absolutely.
But as somebody else on a podcast that I very much respect said, Thomas Frank has a higher floor but a lower ceiling. And I think that's absolutely right. So, yeah. I feel...
Sorry, Stu. There's something to be said here for Levy's management of the closed season. You've got the I don't know if you guys sort of maybe tune into to the way that it's like a girl you really like and she never texts you. Like that's what someone got something on in the background. I'm hearing like a little voice going
I can hear something.
I don't know.
It's like,
hang on, Charlie, you're seriously telling me that there was a girl that you liked that never texted you? Come on, look at that
face. Well, yeah. Actually, yeah.
Name and shame.
but the closed season, we never usually have this kind of bounce into the closed season. We win the cup and we get like a good couple of weeks, and I think he is tuned into the fan base. I think he wasn't going to make a quick decision because he did. He allowed the buzz of Bilbao to happen, and the parade and everything, and now we're all looking at Mbuemo, we're looking at Cunha, we're looking at all these. Why we weren't in for Delap, I don't know. All of these, very well flushed out Premier League players who are available for a decent fee have now gone to or been linked with other clubs, and Spurs are nowhere near it. And we need those kind of players. We need an Mbuemo. We need a Delap. And we're nowhere. We're not even in the conversation. I don't know why, but we're not. And now that Postecoglou things come up, that's another 2 weeks we're going to be talking about a manager. It's another 2 weeks where we're not putting pressure on the club to make those kind of signings, which we need in order to compete in the Champions League next year. And that might be like fantastically cynical of me to think that way, but I genuinely think Daniel Levy does think that way. And I don't think he cares too much, but I think that's why we don't see too much transfer action until the last 4 days of the window, and then we just get scraps. And it's part of the whole Spursy thing. It's part of why I'm sick of the abuse, the abuse of it, the lack of transparency from the club, and the weakness within it. This cup does nothing for me to change the Spursy thing, and it goes with Postecoglou. Having Postecoglou now being fired, he was the backbone of this club. I can say that in the same breath as saying I think he should have gone. But now we're back to being Spursy again because we've got two weeks now where we're going to be talking about manager. And no signings in a Champions League season next year.
Romero is going to have a whole new thing now, isn't it? There's going to be a whole new thing about Spursy. It used to be Tottenham can't hold out for a win. Now it's going to be Tottenham don't want to win because they sack their managers when they do. Ash, welcome. You've joined us late, but my word, what a haircut. That's looking excellent.
Lovely haircut, Ash.
Thanks, man. No, I actually was watching you guys. I walked back from my salon and I was watching you guys and I on my phone. And I could hear the whole conversation. Yeah, and it got pretty heated. And dear Charlie, I reposted his blog from the post parade, and he was going on about Spursy, and Charlie has now I think he's living the contradiction right now.
I am. I'm
You are.
massively living it. Yeah. Well, because the decision's been made now. I have to back it.
Yeah. Yeah. All of you guys make such great points. Thank you so much. I don't know if I can really add anything, except that over the years, I feel like I've been beaten down as a Spurs fan, as a long-time Spurs fan, possibly longer than everybody here. And expect the worst because it's going to happen, and can't take away last to May the 21st and the 23rd, where Charlie was like the rest of us luxuriating in that bus parade and 100 to 200,000. You know, our pal David Weeks. You know, I didn't know if Ange, and you guys would back me up on this. Before we came in, I said I just don't know enough about him. I don't know if he can actually step up to the plate for in the Premier League. And I said that all along. The jury is still out. I think we were set up for a third season to see if the jury would indeed still be out. And it was all set up for that. And it is shocking, absolutely shocking, that he did this, Levy. And I feel beaten down. Like we have no say in the matter. It's going to continue on. Oh yeah, David's comment about Ange, and it's fair enough, would say he's a second or third tier manager. And David always say, I like the guy himself, which I think many of us did. But he's second or third tier manager. And if you look at the possibilities of what's coming in, we're going to get a second or third tier manager coming in again, if that's indeed what it was, without all the cachet of winning a trophy and getting that monkey off our back. By the way, Birkinshaw also left the club. I don't know, I think it was mutual consent after winning the Europa League. So that's happened twice now. The last two times we won the Europa League, we lost our manager, which speaks to some of the issues we actually have. But then again, a lot of teams do have issues. Yeah, I don't know what to say. It's disheartening. Doesn't perhaps surprise us, but it's disheartening, and it makes me question my allegiance to Spurs. Actually, I've been doing it for years. Actually, ever since the 2019 Champions League final. I actually wrote a blog saying that, you know what, if and when we win, I think I just might retire from supporting Spurs full time. You know, just turn up. And sure enough, these last 2 years. There's a pub that Charlie and I go to in LA called the Greyhound, and I went so few times this season, but I did go out for the big games, and it was joy to be there for that final. But I'm just wondering, am I really gonna? It's like this, the love and whatever is just sort of leveling out. I'm sorry to say. I feel bad for our club.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think it's very difficult to be passionate about it now. I think the passion, I mean, the interest is always going to be there in whatever form. But I mean, this is such a deflating experience.
Yes.
It sort of really takes the I don't know, the passion, the
Yes.
yeah, yeah, and one thing I really don't understand, I'd like to know what the rest of you think about this, is that there are obviously so many players who are so committed to Postecoglou. Yeah. I know they're professionals, I know they got contracts, yeah, but somebody like Romero, I mean, that was obvious anyway. Yeah, I mean, the chances of him staying now, I think, are pretty slim. Yeah?
Gotta be.
Now, I don't understand from the point of view of the runners of the club, the directors of the club. Why would you want to risk losing one of the best players in the world, in making this decision? I mean, there are so many other. I mean, because that affects Van der Ven as well, and the partnership between them. There are so many repercussions in terms of the squad reaction. That's what I don't get, is that doesn't seem to be to have been a factor.
Well, it could be Brian, that it could be strictly monetary, and that those people you were just talking about are looking at 60, 70 million coming into the club from selling Romero. And okay, we can reinvest that, or not reinvest it. I can stick it in my back pocket. I think all of this is run on a profit and sustainability, profit loss type situation. And just getting back to the word you used, a lot less passion involved. It's a business. And listen, hey, I think something bigger is going on. I believe something bigger is going on, and there is a new investment coming in. The new investment people might be already voicing what they want to see happening with the club, and we don't have a clue. There could well be something, as I said, big going on. I wouldn't be surprised.
There's a vibe around the fan base. It feels a little bit like Newcastle did just
Yes.
before Ashley sold them. I can't quite put my finger on why, but I think it's a
Yeah.
lack of investment. It's the fan sentiment and hostility towards the board, the lack of turnover in players. I think we just got lucky with a trophy, which is what maybe changes it slightly. But I've just been thinking about that period of time for them a lot recently.
Yes,
I'll be
good
honest,
point.
if the board want to see hostility from some of us, then sure, sell out to Qatar or somebody who's
Yeah.
going to throw our values completely down the toilet. I thought that Newcastle being sold to Saudi Arabia, I just thought that was a horrible, horrible decision. Just allowing them to be able to do that. The human rights record that they have is absolutely abysmal. And honestly, if we were to go down there, I mean, Ash talks about losing some passion. That could be one of the very few things I think that could push me away for a period of time. It would be a very difficult thing to get over, to see my club being owned by people who effectively encourage human slavery.
Absolutely.
I couldn't. I think we would. The Cads podcast would continue. But the Cads podcast would almost be a reaction to what's going on, and we'd have to almost temper the good things with the reminder that, hey, everybody, our owners stone people for being gay. You know.
Yeah, there's a world of difference between full support and wearing a tea towel on your head as the Geordies did.
Oh, that's
You
sickening
know,
when they do that.
but loving the club, loving your fellow fans, loving the community you've built up around yourself, loving the history, and calling out like Stu just did. I think you can still do that. That doesn't cheapen or change your supporter status, in my opinion. But for others, it may be different. They might have to walk away.
You know, I think we need investment, and I think that Daniel Levy, if there's anything you can say to me, there is no danger of our club being a financial mess. We are the best run club in the world. That's a huge honor. I mean, it really is. I know we joked about it before we had a trophy that we were the best run club in the world, and it doesn't exactly fill our coffers, and it inspires ridicule from other fan bases. But I'd rather be us than Chelsea. I don't know what's going on with Chelsea or Man City, like any of those guys. And it's not going to take a massive, wholesale Man City, switch in investorship in order for Spurs to compete. If you look at the wage bill, we've got no players over 190,000 a week. And it sounds ridiculous that we're talking in these terms, but Bruno Fernandes is on, I think, 700,000 a week at this point. That's what I heard.
No.
That's what he might get in Saudi, right?
We're getting in Saudi?
About 300, something like that.
Crazy
Which
money.
is still a ridiculous amount of money.
Sure, we can't. And I think that wage bill, when you're a professional footballer, imagine, put yourself in Romero's shoes, for example, or any of those other players, like Kulusevski, for example, could walk into a bigger team and command a much bigger paycheck. When you're playing day in, day out with the same players, training with them, and there's clubs who are paying more money for their players, I don't think that encourages us to be a resilient, fighting for the badge kind of team. And I think that it's as much the wages as our capacity to attract big players that I think will inspire people to come to Spurs and actually, I hate to say it, play for the badge more. I didn't see them playing for the badge in the Premier League. I saw them playing European matches for the because playing European matches is a romantic thing. And so yeah, I think that's where the investment will make a difference.
Mild
But if you
pushback on the
want
wages.
to,
Sorry, Stu.
if you want to inspire loyalty, you have to give loyalty, right? You can't. It's not
Mm,
just a one-way
mm,
street. You
mm.
can't say I expect you, Cuti Romero, to be loyal to Tottenham, whilst sacking the manager that he said I want to play under this guy.
That's a different. I mean, that's a different argument. But I do think that QT Romero could get double his wages at Atletico Madrid.
But
You
the
know,
wages are very bonus incentivized at Spurs. They always have been. So I'm curious about what the money that they receive for winning the Europa League, because that's what we've known for years, is that our wages are depressed in these annual statements because it's all based upon end of year position in the league, winning the FA Cup. You know, this might have bankrupted us. Who knows?
but now you know why we were playing like such turd in the Premier League is because
And I
there was
agree with you. Yeah, that's totally
no
true.
incentive to play. You
Or,
know,
or at the very least, you're thinking in the back of your head, "Oh God, there's another goal. That's 10 grand that I've just missed out on." Like that must be a horrible
potentially.
place to be in, even if you're rich, even if you're whatever.
Yeah,
I think that's a
yeah,
great point.
definitely.
Okay, so it's it's been an opportunity to vent tonight, but we're getting to the point where we do need to close things down because we could talk all night long, and I don't think anybody needs that. I certainly don't think we do. We need to take a breath. But I'm going to give everybody the chance to give their final thoughts, and then we're going to close the show out. Thank everybody for coming, by the way. But let's start with Brian. What's your
Oh,
final thoughts for tonight? Thank you for
yeah,
coming, by the way.
sorry.
Thank you for coming. It's been
Well,
great
hey,
having
no,
you on.
I really felt I actually felt the need. I really felt the need to be able to be with you tonight. And it's interesting that you know that it affected me so deeply. I think all of us deeply. I thought that the best thing to do is really to to talk to you about things. Really, it's just this sense of sadness and a loss that I just don't see. And I'm not talking. I'm really not talking about football acumen, the mastery of football tactics, and so on. You're going to find them. I think Silva's probably quite good at that, and all these different players. It's really the loss of a figurehead, of somebody who I felt represented by, yeah, on a sporting level, on a cultural level, on a human level, which really is something that I think is very, very difficult to replace. It's very much the qualities that Pochettino had as well. Now we had two of these people, yeah, and both of them have been sacked. Yeah. And they've been sacked because obviously they didn't produce the right results in a certain situation and so on. Yeah. But it says to me something very, very negative and dark about Levy and his understanding of what we need, of what the club needs, and what the culture of the club should be.
Okay, now we're going to go over to someone whose period of time with us has been as short as his new haircut. Ash.
Thanks, gentlemen. Thanks for being here, by the way. I literally was walking back from the salon going, oh, I can listen to them. At least they might be able to see me. I'm gonna try and say something positive. Although if it is Thomas Frank, I do like his haircut. He's got style. He's got style about him. It's like Mancini. He had style about him on the sidelines. I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, although I think he's on a hiding to nothing.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
how do you improve? Get in the Champions League? Well, we did that. Win a cup? Well, we did that. So, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. He may be a guy who can overcome all this negativity and maybe bring the players on with him. I've interviewed a lot of players, a lot of managers, a lot of owners. I've flown in an owner's plane, private jet. It's a lot different on the inside than it is from our perspective out here. A lot different. I hope that if it is Frank, that he can, what Brian was just saying, he can bring that sort of togetherness or that feeling that the players want to play for him and the club. Let's think positive about that. We have to, otherwise, we're going to be in a. I mean, those years with Nuno, Mourinho, and Conte, I just hated those years, and I disliked those guys as people, as opposed to Ange and Pochettino. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt, and that he can work with what he is left with, because obviously some big players are going to leave, and look positively towards it, but also expect the worst. It could well happen.
Okay, moving on to probably one of the most handsome men in podcasting right now, Charlie. He's a vampire Bewley.
I was going to say Ian. I was going to say, oh, you're going to, I thought you were going to say, oh, you're going to Ian.
Yeah,
I've got something for Ian later, don't
Ian was
worry.
getting excited
Ian's
there.
coming up.
disgusting.
Well, I mean, look, I'm really excited for next season. I think it's the right move. I'm excited because of all these young players we've blooded this season, and I cannot believe that we won't buy 3 or 4 starting players. And I also like to think that we'll get a coach that is an improvement on everyone that's been mentioned so far, and actually take into account what Spurs do need, which is quite clearly a very charismatic, or somebody that the fan base can actually really connect with, like a Pochettino, like Postecoglou really connected, like he was, or even going back as far as Martin Jol or Harry Redknapp. Those are the people that we embraced as Spurs fans, So I really hope it's somebody who endears themselves to the fan base. I think there'll be too much or too much sort of cynicism around Frank. I don't think we as a fan base will particularly respect that call. So I'll be very shocked if Frank gets the job. I would be less shocked if Pochettino somehow gets the job. I think that would be the smartest move at this point to assuage what is going to be a very intense time here for us as the new manager gets chosen. And again, like, I think we have the squad is exactly where it needs to be. It's still in that rebuild phase. I think I would love to have seen us get Mbeumo, Delap. I think that maybe is a little bit unproven, but like Mbeumo certainly isn't. Like, a whole new front line, a number 6, and we're going to have an amazing season next year. We're in the Champions League, and ultimately we'll have a manager who is going to be much better than Postecoglou was in the Premier League. And I just think it's win-win now. Now I can see it through this prism. I think it's win-win for everybody. I just really hope that this manager coming in doesn't spark a kind of like, oh, great, okay, well, he's going to get fired in 2 years kind of feeling, that I feel that Thomas Frank probably will feel that way, to be honest, So I'll be surprised if it's Frank, I've got to say.
Okay, and finally on to Ian, who not only has the hair of a Premier League footballer, but also the beard of a Premier League footballer. Both of those people are Brian and Mbeumo. So,
Yeah.
Ian.
I don't have the skill on the ball of Brian Mbeumo, though. Well, thanks for having me on. It's nice to come on and process my thoughts and feelings immediately after they happen. I usually spend several days, listening to other people vent their emotions, and then I have to process it and then try to regurgitate something which is somewhat novel. So this time I get to regurgitate whatever is not novel coming out of my body. I think that right now is a time for remembering the good stuff that happened with Ange. The 22 losses is going to get mentioned again and again. It happened, but we have Bilbao. We have the run to the Europa League final. We have a number of really impressive wins last season. We have him defending us, as has been mentioned by the other boys on the podcast, in the press, and I haven't heard that for a long time. I feel like he was as proud to be Tottenham manager as Harry Redknapp was, 15 years ago. It felt like that again, which I think we needed. And he's left us, I think, to use the campfire analogy, I think he's generally left us in a better place than he found us. And that's important. That's important.
Yeah,
So,
I fully agree.
Yeah.
All right, well, it's been a difficult evening, but thank you everybody for coming. Brian, thank you for making your debut. Charlie, thank you for taking the time. Ashley, thank you for sharing your wonderful haircut with us. Ian, again, I'm glad you don't have to spend your time listening to this one. It's one you can check off the list. But I think my biggest thank you goes to Ange. Thank you for giving us back some pride in our team. Thank you for giving us a trophy. And thank you for bowing out with some style. Because honestly, you could have shit all over this club and probably many of us would have backed you. Classy man, classy man.
Absolutely.
My normal way going out is by saying those magic words tonight. I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to wish everybody the best of luck. Deal with your emotions, everybody. If you need to talk to someone, talk to someone. As Brian said, it's nice to talk to someone because a problem shared is a problem halved. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Cheers, Stu.
Go on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.
Somebody had to say it.